Hey everyone, welcome to How You Go There. I'm Scott Montgomery, and I'm thrilled to kick off this series where we walk through the How You Go There workbook together.
And I'm your co host, Linda Misegadis. We're diving into the real stories and steps behind personal and professional growth.
Before you can chart out a new path, you have to understand the path that brought you here. And this series is all about slowing down, reflecting, and getting curious about your experiences. That's how you go there. Well, good morning, Linda Misegadis. How are you today on this four-leaf clover St. Patrick's Day
I know it. It's
in
crazy.
March?
I am doing very well, Scott Montgomery. I am not representing like you are though. And we both have, Irish heritage, and here I am wearing gray. But like
It's
I
got a
was
green
telling
tint
you
to
when
it. I see it. I can see,
That's right.
or is that my
That's
color
right. Well,
blindness?
there's a little yeah, sure, we could pretend, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I like it. Well, like I was telling you, I was the kid who never remembered that stuff and got pinched in school, so, I mean, what are you
Pinch,
gonna do?
pinch, pinch. I'm pinching you right now.
What a bunch of jerks people were. Who pinches a bunch of little kids for not wearing green? Who came up with
I
that tradition?
know.
That's just
I
screwed up,
know.
so
And the four-leaf clover. Let's see. How many of those have we seen? Have you ever seen a four-leaf
right? I
clover?
have never seen it. Not a real four-leaf clover, not a real one,
Really?
so
I have.
yeah. Have you?
I've actually pulled
Oh,
it out of the ground. I was younger, back when I actually saw
wow.
the light of day and not my office as
Oh
much.
my
But yeah,
goodness, yeah,
you
alright,
know
I
what
will
that
be on
brings
the
up?
lookout for one.
I was at the beach about a month ago and I found my first sand dollar. My
Oh,
fully
really?
assembled, perfectly round sand dollar.
Oh, how
Uh,
nice is
yeah,
that?
after years and decades of looking for
Yeah,
this, I've never found one. So maybe
never
that was
found
the
one.
luck of the Irish a little early.
Oh, that could very well be.
Just
That's right,
saying.
spreading it around. I think we'll keep it that way for sure,
Well,
so
and bringing up the beach kind of brings up the habits one might do for the life they want to live, right?
oh my goodness, I totally agree. Well, and in the last episode, we spent some time doing something really important, I think. We stepped back and we did a habit assessment. So, for
Yes.
those of you who don't remember, it is this worksheet right here, the habit assessment in the How You Go There workbook. And we talked about
Hmm.
looking at the small actions that quietly shape our lives every day, not
Hmm.
the big goals we set once a year, but those
Hmm.
daily patterns that really kind of determine whether we actually move toward those goals, because habits feed goals, which is really an important component of it. But, the truth is habits are happening whether we design them or not. So even if you're not consciously thinking about them, habits exist. And some of them help us grow, but some of them can actually work against us, right? So
Yes.
the focus of our conversation that we're going to be talking, that
Yeah.
was our focus of that conversation was really
Sure.
on awareness. This conversation, we're going to dig a
Execution.
little bit deeper, yes, on taking it from more of an accountability perspective, right? And being more intentional about what that looks like. So, Scott, what I see is that one of the biggest reasons that habits fail is that people start too big, right? They decide they
Uh,
want to transform their life overnight. They're going to, wake up at 5 a.m., they're going to exercise for an hour, journal, meditate, read 10 pages of a book, and somehow that's just gonna magically happen every day,
right.
and then life happens,
Not
right?
so
And
much.
that doesn't work that way. But what do you see about, like, what causes habits to fail?
So for me, habits, not only what causes them to fail, but for me, it's about working towards peak performance and not a very specific end result. So I try and look at it more from a visionary lens of bringing your best self to whatever your goal might be. And we're going to get into goals in the next chapter.
Yeah.
But I think for me, it's about working at peak performance on the things that you can prioritize. And so when you bring up dieting, for example, and trying to bring in that full 20 pound, weight loss
Yeah.
overnight, if you set up the habit correctly, it'll have roadblocks. You'll have all kinds of different data points along the way of that journey. But if you think you're going to change your habit by having one meal that's going to be less
Yeah.
calories, it's not going to fly. So one of the things I like about my companion guide here is the effects of the habits and how you can
Yes.
look for the end result to be in a realistic timeline and not just say, I changed my habits, therefore I've changed, you
Right.
know?
Yeah, 100%. Well, and I think sometimes we get caught up in believing that you have the motivation, and if you have the motivation, that that's all you need, but motivation by itself is pretty unreliable because it comes and goes, right? It ebbs and flows. Like today, I might be gung ho to go and walk 5 miles on the treadmill and do a workout routine. And then tomorrow, I'm like, oh my gosh, I burned myself out yesterday. It was too much too fast. And so now my motivation isn't as strong. And so motivation alone is not enough to form good habits, right?
Well, and when we talk like this, for me, what comes up is the ability to be in a habit lifestyle, right? Not even
Yeah.
setting up habits around specific goals, but more of like, I get up, I make my bed, I open up the shades, I turn off the lights, I brush my teeth, I take a shower, I do the things that present myself in peak performance.
Yes.
And then, for example, like the habit of you and I jumping on a few minutes to just make sure we're on good stead with our
Yeah.
podcast and how we're going to communicate. And we set ourselves up to work in peak performance, not the end result of a successful podcast.
Exactly, that I like that, and I think, if you think about it from the lens that habits kind of remove the need to make a decision every day, and I'll use a silly
Yeah.
example. Simon Cowell is a great example of this. He wears the exact same thing every single day. He wears a black T-shirt and jeans. He orders those black T-shirts custom made. He's got a lot of money, he can do that. He orders them custom made, and he orders enough, like, he literally every single day he gets up, and the reason why he does that is to operate in peak performance because it's not about he cares about how he looks because 'cause they're custom fit, but he doesn't care that he wears the exact same outfit every day because that's one less thing he needs to think about in a day
Right.
that is full of all of these other
Peak.
things that are going on, right? So peak performance, which is what you talk about.
Well, I think that really hits on, for me, what we're trying to describe in habits. Just exactly that analogy, right? Or that metaphor. Exactly that. He wants to look nice. He wants to be comfortable. He can get away with that in the world of style. And, it's one less thing he's got to think about. So he can be in peak performance in judging a show, developing a show, helping a boy band be created, whatever it is he's doing.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's exactly what I do with habits too. And quite frankly, the other side of that is when I get home from a long day and I walk into my room and the noise of the day is ringing in my ears and head, and I look over my bed's made, I start to simmer.
Yes,
And so
yes.
it has a twofold effect that now I can sleep at peak performance because I
Right.
didn't have to make my bed to get in my bed.
That is true. Well, it creates a structure that allows you to act consistently even when you don't feel like it, right? So kinda to your point, if you came home and your bed wasn't made, that just slogs you down, and now that it throws everything out of whack. But if that bed is made, that can help you operate at peak performance. You go to bed, you feel comfortable, you wake up refreshed the next day, hopefully, right? I mean, that's the goal behind it. So,
I think so. I think if people can make habits like that and not
yeah.
all about quitting smoking and working out and dieting,
Yeah.
but they can make it about recognizing those repetitive steps that allow them to work in peak performance.
Yeah.
I mean, Logan, if there's not a clip to pick up, that's the one right there, right? That was
Yeah.
that's
No.
that's, I think, the theme of our conversation today. And I think if we
It
can move
is.
things to that place for our viewers,
Mhm.
that's what my stories are about in the book, and how meeting results have a different end date,
Yep.
relationships have different meaning, substance is created through the simplicity of your habit action plan.
Right. Well, and let me break down a little bit for everybody, just in their simplest form, that habits follow a very basic pattern, right? There's a cue, which is the trigger to tell your brain it's time to act, right? There's an action, which is the behavior itself. And then there's a
Correct.
reward, which reinforces the behavior. So your brain wants to repeat it. And if you understand that loop of cue, action, reward, then you realize that habits aren't accidental, right? And they actually
Hmm.
can be designed, which is what you're talking about there. It doesn't have to be about losing weight or dieting or any of these. Making your bed is
Yes.
a really simplistic thing, but it's a habit
Hmm.
and it has a real impact on your mental health because if your bed
Hmm.
isn't made, it affects how you feel.
Yes. And thank you for that, because I feel like you almost read that right out of the book, the original book. because we do talk. I do make reference to the cues and the time frames and the adjustments. As a matter of fact, I quote one of the former politician, Olympic track and field athletes, Jim Ryan. Motivation is what gets you started, but habits are what keep you going. And
Exactly.
I think that people put more onus on eating right as a habit than it
Mhm.
is the idea of a habit helping you be in peak performance.
I wanna kind of walk everybody through kind of like a real life example in
Sure.
something that like I did because I wanted to make a habit out of daily reflection, and so it was something to kind of help me slow down, think about my day a little bit more, and become more intentional about how I'm
Hmm.
living and my leading, right? So, the first thing I needed to do following my workbook is that I needed to name the habit clearly, right? The habit was not be more reflective. It was spend 5 minutes reflecting on the day. That's it. That's different, right? Being more reflective and spending 5 minutes is a much different goal. And
Hmm.
so and it's only 5 minutes. I can achieve
Hmm.
5 minutes, right? If I can't do 5
Sure.
minutes, then what the hell am I doing? So, and I think that's one of the biggest mistakes people make, right? They create these habits that are way too big to sustain. And I've done that to myself for years.
Right.
Create these
Yes.
crazy, ridiculous habits or are these goals to turn into a habit. And so then I had to decide, well, when would the habit happen, right? So I needed to be a specific moment in the day that I could actually do this. So for me, I like to do it first thing in the morning. I'm a very early riser. Usually it's just me and the dogs around. And so that's a perfect time for me to take those 5 minutes and be reflective on what it is that I'm doing. And so, maybe what I wanna do is, I've gotta make sure that that habit becomes part of my routine, right? Something you
Right.
talk about in the book. Then I need to attach that habit to something that already exists. And so, like for me, getting up early in the morning, and so I usually get up, I make my tea, I sit down, and I'm gonna spend 5 minutes reflecting on the day. So, the tea is my cue, right? That's what makes the
Hmm.
habit easy because now I've got that
Right.
mental cue that says, like for you, getting up in the morning is the cue to make the bed, right?
I was going to say that's your cue too, though. Waking up is your cue to execute
That's a
too.
good
So,
point. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. So I
right,
kinda have
right.
2 of those, and then, I need to make sure that the journal's not somewhere hidden in the house. I've gotta make sure it's
Hmm.
right there on the counter, easy to get to on the table. So having that right there, and so that's really my action is to take out that journal, have it ready, and write in it, and then what's my reward? Well, I get 5 minutes of calm before I start my day, and it sets the trajectory for my day to be better because I start in a more calm place instead of waking up, going right to my emails, being in a state of anxiety and stress or something. It gives me 5 minutes to myself to just be calm.
With over a decade of experience, WorldGate LLC is your trusted partner in IT staffing and project management tailored for the public sector. We help government agencies and organizations navigate complex technology landscapes, implement effective workforce solutions, and build high performing teams from strategic staffing to seamless systems integrations. We bring the experience and reliability to execute, empower, and exceed for our customers. Staffing? Check. Project management? Check. Public sector solutions? Check. Experience you can trust. Visit our website at www.worldgatellc.com today. I might even say that your calmness comes from a reflective awareness
Yeah.
of your state of mind. So I've done similar in front of meetings that I knew would be stressful.
Yeah.
And to meditate and get yourself in place where you know where your tripwires are and you've written them down in your journal, you're more than prepared to move into working at peak performance. And when you're working in peak performance, that creates the calm, not the
Yes.
habit.
Absolutely. No, I love that.
The habit helps you achieve access to that data.
It's such a great point and a good lead in to accountability. So talk
Hmm.
about how that accountability because sometimes habits will stick better when someone else knows you're trying to build them or like what's your perspective on this whole idea of how do I create an accountability whether that's to myself or how do I go about doing that?
Well, I think what I did relates to my children. So as I raised my kids, the second I saw that they were capable of executing on a repeat cycle, I inserted a chore.
Yeah,
And so each of my kids would take on a chore for that week.
I
And
like
they were
that.
simple chores: laundry, dishes,
Yeah,
walk the dog.
yeah,
So a habit didn't need to be difficult. What it was training was the awareness of your contribution to a system that is pouring into their existence nonstop with education and all the things. They're going off to school, they're in a consumptive lifestyle, but it also helped them recognize, take a pause and look behind you. Are the dishes done? Sense of
yeah,
fulfillment.
yeah.
Did I get that chore done? Not how did I get that chore done? I didn't focus, and I don't focus too much on whether or not my bed has been ironed or the
Okay, so it's
dishes
not
have
the
been put away
quality
perfectly.
necessarily of the bed being
Correct.
made. Yep, yep, okay.
It is the reflectiveness of having done the chore and then being able to appreciate that later, i.e., when I go into my bed and it's made, it's better than it's not. Like, my brain is all tousled. Why would my bed be tousled? And so for me, the best way to describe that, I think you were asking, I don't want to get off on a tangent, is more about the kids and about how the reflectiveness of the habit, the reflectiveness of your journal, and the time you've created to create the space of for that awareness, which is again why the companion guide is a good thing for folks to create awareness,
Yeah,
not quality. The quality comes in
right.
the goal.
It
The
does, I
quality comes
agree.
in
Yeah,
the relationship. The quality comes in
yes.
what happens as being able to work in peak performance. In my opinion,
Yeah.
if you're working in peak performance, the best of the quality is going to surface.
Oh, for sure. I totally
So if
agree
you're
with that.
gonna if you're gonna use a chore, for example, and you're gonna say the dishes need to be done, and I'm not looking at quality as much, when quality does matter, and one of
Mhm.
these children opens a restaurant and they need their dishes to be put away clean,
Yes,
they're gonna be closer to working at that peak performance. So that habit had a
absolutely.
contribution
I
in
like
a
that.
reflective way.
Well, and that's really kind of, again, works to the workbook here, right?
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
it's around building stronger habits. So identify one habit that you struggle to maintain, and then why is it difficult for you to maintain, right? So jot those
Mhm,
things down, and then what would
mhm.
be the benefits to your point? That's this whole, you know, cue, action, and reward
Yeah,
conversation, which is looking at those pieces and then, how would you benefit if you actually were maintaining that habit? And what you might find out is maybe that's not a habit you need to. Maybe it's something that you were
totally,
like, right? You're like, does
totally.
this really benefit me in any way, or is it just something that I had trained my brain to think I had to do? And so it's a good opportunity to evaluate both the habits you want to improve and maybe the habits you need to get rid of, right?
Well, and I like that you bring that up because for me, journaling and in line with that meditation, I really struggle with
Yeah.
because my personality, different from yours, requires perhaps, let's just use an example, action, physical
Yeah.
action,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
or talking to execute.
Mhm.
Meditating is like an entrapment for me. And then but I tried it. I tried it.
Yeah, good
And,
for you.
I tried the journaling and I'm like, this is not for me. So giving permission to those in how they get aware to that self reflective
Yeah.
is up to them. Making a bed is good for me because it's taking action and it has a nice end result, right?
Yes.
Meditating is hard for me, so I can get a guided meditation
Right.
I can sit through, and I do find a positive end result to that. But the other thing that I like, that was a negotiating point in what I developed here, is
Yeah.
there's a habit tracker. And you
Yes.
can actually keep track of your habit, writing it in, and then keep track over 30 days how much you actually just a simple X. You can build a
Yep.
rainbow here. You could
Yeah.
actually build a different color and fill it in, and you
Yeah.
can assess at the end of 30 days, like I did,
Mhm.
and become aware the habit I'm doing is stupid, i.e., meditation's not for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not a good valid. I mean, I know it's a proven study and all the things, but it's
But
just not
not
my
for everyone
preferred.
is the thing,
Right.
right? It
Yeah.
is for some people, but not for others. Where for some people, getting up first thing in the morning and running, like, conceptually, I love the idea of getting up in
Yeah.
the morning and running. I'm not a runner, and I would hate every single second of it. And so,
Totally.
so it's like recognizing how you how you think, how you operate, what's important to you, which is also an important component of what we've been talking about. Is like you and I
Yeah.
aren't here to tell anyone your habit needs to be doing this or your
X.
habit
Right.
needs to be doing that. Nope. Your habits need to be what is going to be beneficial to you and help you in your journey, right?
In your journey to be in peak performance,
Yes, yes.
which requires self-reflection, which is why I focus on habits being clearing and allowing you
Yes.
to find your best self like
Absolutely.
you did in your
Yeah.
scenarios. Exactly. So
No,
that's a
I totally
nuance that
agree.
probably is surprising for our viewers and our listeners because it's a nuance to not preaching, trying not to
Yeah.
preach. I
No,
don't want
no.
to preach. No one wants to preach that habits are important, but they are.
They
But how you wanna
Yes.
do them is,
Yes.
strictly up to you, to
Absolutely.
your own peak performance. Right, right, right,
Well,
right.
and, like, if you use my example of, like, 5 minutes of reflection, it's like, "Really, Linda? I mean, how life-changing is that?" But if you do that every year for every day for a year, that's 30 hours of intentional thinking about your own life. So,
Right.
yeah, those 5 minutes doesn't seem all that impactful. When I look back a year from now, I've spent 30 hours really making intentional reflection on my own life, and that is something that is
Well,
impactful.
and again, I would tie that to not your own life, but your own peak performance within your life.
Yes,
So,
yeah,
for me, habits are about finding your best self
yeah,
through those reflections. That is a cl
absolutely.
right? That's the habit right
Yeah.
there.
No, it's true.
Yeah.
Well,
Not
and to
the
your
active.
point, yeah, because that reflection, it does change my awareness, right? It changes my decisions, and it changes how I lead and how I show up for the people around me, right? And
Well, may I
so
jump in on you?
yeah,
How
no,
it'll
please
show up
do.
how you show up in your partnerships, your
Yes,
relationships, and execution of your goals,
and I'm glad that you brought
and
that up.
self-care.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh my gosh, and the self-care, which is so important around all of this, and that's one of the things where I would say, Scott, like, how might a small habit change the way you show up in your partnership or your relationship? Or how do self-care habits ultimately influence how we lead and make decisions, right? Which is the whole point of these are buckets, but they could be cups, like my cup runneth
Yeah.
over, I don't know.
Right, right. Yeah, well, you can just fill them in there. I thought it was an interesting bucket of
Yeah.
tools that you walk away with after
I
said
love it.
assessment.
Yeah. No,
And
it's
then
a
the
great
next one is
visual.
the rainbow one, and then you're looking at how you're doing before you move into why you have habits at all. But yeah, this is
Yeah.
I mean, it's such an interesting topic for me, and I love how you've spun it in your scenarios and how we have a chance here in this platform to share with the community. Its value is often for me underlying and not
Yeah.
as obvious as the execution of the task. So,
Yes.
yeah,
I totally agree.
peak performance is hard to define.
It is hard to define, and that's what I like because what you're talking about is it's making the shift, right? And that's something
Not
really
just losing the
powerful.
weight. Right,
Exactly, yeah, because at some
right,
point you stop being the person who's trying to build the habit and you just become the person who lives the habit, right? And like I
right.
heard this somewhere, I don't know if it was a
You're
podcast
so
or
right.
book or whatever, where they said, like if you want to be a runner, don't say I want to be a runner, say I am a runner, right? Because you
Right.
have to start to make the mental shift. And that's what you're talking about when it comes to habits is that eventually you're not just kind of like occasionally reflecting. I'm someone who intentionally is reflecting on what's going on. But, habits really kind of slowly shape who you are and your identity.
When I was certifying for to be a leadership coach with George Mason, the 150 hours, 140 hours
Uh
you
huh.
need to execute on, they often reiterated, "You are a coach. Keep telling yourself you
Yes.
are a coach."
Yeah.
And so it is true self-fulfillment, self-prophecy, but also the habits of that coursework allowed me to be confident in my peak performance as a coach,
Yes, which also helps kinda combat imposter syndrome a little bit as well, right? Because
which
in
is
that
not this
yeah,
yes.
yeah,
It's not the same as losing weight. It's not the
no,
same as quitting smoking.
no,
It's not the same. And that's why I think I'm
yes,
really glad to have our conversation highlight for folks the nuance of your habit
yeah,
really defines your, again, peak performance. Pick a
yeah.
topic, pick a goal.
I love
Yeah.
this. No, this is so awesome. Well, and so I think, like, if I were gonna leave our listeners with some listener
No, no, we have to
reflection.
leave our listeners again.
I
We'll
know,
be back.
it's a but if we give them something to think about when they move through the week, I want you to focus in on what's
Mhm.
one habit that you wanna build, just one, right? Which is
Name the
what
habit.
name the habit. Then walk through
Correct.
the steps. What is the habit? When will it
Mhm,
happen? So define that
mhm.
piece of it. What routine will trigger it, right? Can you
Yes.
make it easy? And what
Yeah.
reward reinforces it?
Well, and the trackers are in the companion guide, so you can keep
Yes.
track of all of this and tie it to something you're doing today.
Yes.
So that where do I want to work in peak performance? Well, I want to be less stressed out when I get to my bedroom at night. Okay,
Yeah.
well, part of that would make sure put everything away before you leave it in the morning. It's a
Yes.
great habit to get into, and now you've accomplished being at peak performance to settle your mind when you're in your room at the end of the day.
Yes. Yeah,
So tie
absolutely.
into existing routines and all of those things. Really simple stuff, but it's warranted a half an hour conversation, an entire companion guide, and it is
Absolutely.
part of successfully leading folks, yourself
Yes,
included. So if
absolutely.
you're here visiting with us and listening to our podcast talk about peak performance in leadership and how does this apply to my organization? Well, it doesn't always apply to your organization as a one-off, i.e., losing weight. It applies to how you bring yourself to the game of leadership. And when I say
Yeah,
game, I mean the performance of it and
that's
hopefully
right.
your peak performance of it. Yeah.
I no, I think that's a really great way to sum it all up, Scott. And,
Uh,
as always, we appreciate all of you spending time with us on the How
yes.
You
Thank
Get
you.
There podcast for sure. And if you're enjoying these conversations, make sure you follow the show, like and subscribe so you don't miss any upcoming episodes. And Scott, how do they get this handy dandy companion guide and
You can
some
always
cool
go to
information?
even getting copies of our podcast. You can
Yeah.
get marketing material. You can get hats, mugs, cups, journals. We talked a lot about journaling today. You can get your "How did you get here" or "How you go there" journals right on
Yeah.
www.howyougothere.com.